Live on radio, live online. This is the Locker Room on Joy 99.7 FM with George Adu Jr.
Boxing Family Insights this weekend with WBC heavyweight king Deontay Wilder taking on Britain's Tyson Fury at the Staples Center in Los Angeles in a battle of unbeaten fighters. The high-stakes contest could ultimately pave the way for a money-spinning unification bout against Anthony Joshua, who holds the WBA, IBF and WBO heavyweight titles.
I am the man to beat.
Oh, my goodness. I think I'm the greatest heavyweight that's ever been born.
I ain't scared of nobody.
Anytime when you play.
Oh, that surely is.
You're going to feel us here. I believe that more people would know me in Los Angeles than they would know Deontay Wilder. Not that he's done anything wrong in his career or anything, but I just don't think that the people who's promoting him and doing the thing behind him are pushing him as much as, say, past champions before have been.
I will knock Tyson Fury out. It ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I don't look into something that's not happening, and if it doesn't happen, then, it wasn't meant. It wasn't meant by God. It wasn't meant by the universe. It wasn't my time.
Tyson Fury stepped back into the ring earlier this year following a 32-month absence after accepting an anti-doping rule violation. Where will this turn? Analysis ahead. Football is big in Accra as serial winners take on first-timers on the biggest stage of women football on the continent.
The only country to have made the semi-finals, and it is Nigeria in the finals again. Absolutely incredible.
South Africa going to France, going to the final, 2-0 victory over Mali as we end from Cape Coast.
We're just the kind of team that never give up. Even though we haven't played together for so long, we also try to manage the game, and we respect them because they're a good side.
Nigeria attempt to defend their Women's Africa Cup of Nations title against South Africa on Saturday at the Accra Sports Stadium. We preview that game and assess the potency of a new winner of the competition. We will be in Cape Coast ahead of this afternoon's third-place playoff between Mali and Cameroon, which also has a World Cup place on offer for the winner. English Premier League is big on our show with special derbies leading the lineup of fixtures this weekend.
There's the header, there's the goal, it will be controversial. Mustafi on his comeback scores for Arsenal. From a free kick, Spurs believe should never have been given. It's his first goal since April. Bellerin, Lacazette, good run in behind here. Chance for Arsenal for a second. Cross to Bath, he has been really fired up. They double their lead and the Tottenham manager tight-lipped.
Opportunity here, pushed away into the path of Sigurdsson who does the rest. Breakthrough, and it's Gylfi Sigurdsson's 6th Premier League goal of the season.
Kiri! And then followed in by Salah.
Liverpool slotted out with Everton in the Merseyside derby and back-to-back London derbies for Tottenham Hotspur as they face Arsenal. Manchester United are away to Southampton. Chelsea seek a reaction against new-looking Fulham, and City are expected to ease out once again with good results. Analysis on all games with a special look ahead to Real Madrid Valencia in Spain and Inter Milan Roma in Italy. Head to our Facebook page, Joy/99.7FM, our WhatsApp line 0244 340 437, or tweeted us at JoySportsGH if you haven't reacted to our question of the day yet. We'll be in DR Congo with a quick look ahead to the second leg of the CAF Confederations Cup final between Raja Casablanca and hosts AS Vita Club, and in Uruguay for updates ahead of the grand finale of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. Time to talk about what the world is talking about in the world of sport. Hello from me, George Adu Jr., and welcome to Preview Friday. And it's a good reminder for you there, get onto our WhatsApp line 0244 340 437 as we begin the locker room this afternoon as well. Get onto our Facebook page, Joy/99.7. There's a lot to come. Yeah, we'll get on the African continent. We'll talk about the African Women's Cup of Nations, yes, and then there's a big talk about all that there is really. We're looking forward to the CAF Confederations Cup final between Raja Casablanca and AS Vita. But for now, we'll have to start our show with boxing. Just a good place to start.
Saturday, it's where the World Heavyweight Championship will take place. Deontay Wilder, the champion, unbeaten, and the challenger, Tyson Fury. Both unbeaten, they both know how to win, they don't know how to lose, and they certainly know how to talk.
Well, what I'm planning to do to Fury is beating him in his own game. I'm going to give him a great boxing lesson and show them what the Bronze Bomber about. Many people didn't think I could box. I'm going to whoop Tyson Fury in a boxing match, and then I'm going to knock him out.
This victory is going to be the biggest victory of all time, the biggest upset ever. And it deserves credit where credit is due, because this is a dare to be great move on both of our parts. And I know it's going to be a great battle. A battle of attrition, a battle of zeros, and a battle of two mentally strong, determined fighters who doesn't want to lose. So that's what makes this fight so intriguing.
The fighter against the boxer, the American against the Brit, the knockout artist against the stylish dancing fighter. That's Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder's the banger. He's dropped every man he's ever met. Tyson Fury says it will be easy. We'll find out on Saturday night.
I am the man to beat.
I think I'm the greatest heavyweight that's ever been born.
I ain't scared of nobody.
Anytime when you play.
Oh, that surely is.
You're going to feel us here.
Yeah, we're 24 hours away. We talk about the WBC champion, Deontay Wilder. He's up against Tyson Fury. Both fighters go into the fight unbeaten, and their combined 67 professional bouts in a fight expected to be watched by millions across the US and the world. Now, with Fury's very, very uninspiring in both of his comebacks, the huge question is he that fit for this bout? So let's get a bit of a perspective now. And I've been speaking with Joy Sports editor Nathaniel Atta, who's on the boxing beat. And he had to first address the fitness of this man, Tyson Fury.
Fights such as these, anything at all can happen. And considering the kinds of surprises that we've seen over the years in major fights like these, you'd want to be very, very calculated in making certain assumptions based on the past. What has happened in comebacks in history? Let's quickly take a look at George Foreman, for instance. And I use his example because he stayed out for, close to 13 years. What was he doing? He was active in the church. He was doing some community work and, just kept himself pretty healthy. He came back and he defeated a younger and more active Michael Moorer, when the opportunity came, and he became the world heavyweight champion of the world again. Now, you go to the welterweight division and you look at someone like Felix Trinidad. Felix Trinidad stayed out for 2 years. He was living a very, very healthy lifestyle. He came back and he did what he had to do. Let's take a look at our own Ike Bazooka Quartey. Ike Bazooka Quartey will always tell you that, look, when I went away for between 3 to 4 years, I partied, I drank what I had to drink, I did whatever I had to do. But when I came back, I made sure that I delivered the job to a certain extent. You understand me? So when you look at all of these scenarios, and of course there are more. I mean, you take a look at Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Jr. stayed away for a little past a year, close to 2 years, and of course he was getting infuriated by the calls and the reference to other people as the undisputed champions in the division. So he decided, let me come back and let me remind everybody that the money man is here and there's nobody better than I am. So when you look at all of these scenarios and you put them against what we're seeing in the next 24 hours, then you know that anything at all technique, and sometimes it may just earn him what he's looking for in this bout.
Right, Nats, then Deontay Wilder, despite holding the WBC title, has had critics classify him as a clumsy boxer with less technique. How true is that, and how has he been managing then with the kind of record he has?
Okay, so this is what Wilder has done over the period. When you take a close look at all of his fights, the fights that he's won, you realize that he combines slapping with proper punching. So he combines slapping with crosses and jabs and hooks, okay? So the other truth of the matter is that if he delivers a barrage of about 6-7 punches continuous, there's a likelihood that you have 2 in there that are slaps. Yes, he is a clumsy boxer. There's no doubt about that. He's not the kind of boxer you'd want to watch too much. And you see, there's another thing about likability as well. You look at someone like Floyd Mayweather Jr. and you realize that in as much as he's done everything that he has to do for the sport, his likability levels cannot be compared to, what Muhammad Ali had back in the day, you see. So his persona in itself lacks a certain level of likability, which should be what will also drive him to become a very relevant and dominant force in the heavyweight division going forward. I have a bit of a problem with that. Otherwise, I could have easily stuck my neck out for him, Deontay Wilder, to win this bout, because I think that he's a ferocious puncher. Anytime I watch him fight, I'm reminded of the executioner Bernard Hopkins and his exploits in the middleweight and super middleweight divisions. A great force. Tyson Fury, who is also coming in with a very good reach. Now, reach can become an advantage or disadvantage depending on how you're fighting. So, in this case, you just need Tyson Fury to keep a very good distance. If he's able to keep a very good distance, he can do a very good fight, and he'll put, treat fans to an enjoyable fight. But at the end of the day, it's not the level of enjoyment for the fans. It is also the win, which is very, very critical in going forward. Remember that this fight is a very key one in determining when Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua will happen. Whether win or lose, Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder will happen. However, if Wilder should lose this bout, a certain amount of value would have been taken out of that challenge that he's posing to Anthony Joshua.
Really, really slippery, those prediction lines, and I'm not going to push you that way on the show for sure. But I was just thinking then, how costly? You made the point, whether a win or lose for either boxer, the Anthony Joshua bout with Wilder would somehow still come off. But then for Tyson Fury, if he loses this bout, what does it mean?
Fury is back to take his place in the relevant scheme of things in the heavyweight division. If he loses this bout, he has the credentials. It has not gone away, and the credentials is what pushes you when it comes to boxing, and especially when it comes to the commercial aspect of the sport. He's still a very attractive person. If you look at what himself and Wilder have done in the build-up to this fight, it just tells you that he's every promoter's platinum mine, because he knows how to sell fights. So there definitely will be opportunities for him in the division. Remember that he's highly rated already as well in the division. So a loss to Deontay Wilder will not necessarily take him out completely in terms of opportunities that can come, in the future.
All right, now thank you very much. It will be a wonderful sight to behold at the Staples Center in Los Angeles later. Definitely. Nathaniel Arthur there with all the analysis that you need really going into it. We have to step onto the continent. There's a big discussion to come on the African Women's Cup of Nations, the final at the third place. But you know what? We have to do this now. Okay, so this normally will be played at every CAF organized event. I'm sure we're looking forward to the Africa Cup of Nations 2019. My colleague Benedict also joins me in studio. Before we talk about the CAF Confederations Cup final between Raja Casablanca and AS Vita, Ben, thank you very much. But what are we hearing about the hosting rights of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations?
Well, George, the CAF Executive Committee are in town holding a meeting at the Movenpick Hotel, and as you know, normally at every CAF organized competition, they will come and look at everything that's going to happen the year and also the next year. And in this very meeting, among key things they are looking at is the hosting rights, that's Cameroon 2019. And the inspection team that went in November, I understand, have presented their reports to the executive committee, and the decision coming out probably it's not something our friends from Cameroon will like. It looks like they will take the hosting rights from Cameroon and open a month bid for countries that are interested to, bid for the competition. And it will be very, very disturbing if you're a Cameroonian hearing this, that probably maybe you lose the hosting rights after everything that they've gone through trying to fix things that are not there to host this competition next year. Until the change was made to the timing and the date, it would have been 2 months away, or probably maybe a month away. That's in January, but now it's going to happen in June. And if in June, and with the expansion of the teams to 24, now what it means is that previously you would need 4 venues, but now you need six venues. And Cameroon, if you watch the last African Women's Championship, which was held in 2016, you realize that they have 2 venues. That's in Limbe, I hope I got the pronunciation correct, and also in Yaoundé. And the one in Limbe is 20,000 capacity, and the one in Yaoundé is 42,500. And obviously you need other venues, and I was reading that they have other venues that they are putting in shape, but looking at the time and also the political instability in the country, for CAF and for those involved, the stakeholders, I'm not sure it's something they want to risk, because this is a gathering of African countries, and it's not just African countries. You have other people coming from other continents to witness the competition. So if they are coming in, you cannot assure them of their safety, and also if things are not in place, especially talking about facilities, then what's the point?
There'll be no point. So at the moment, we don't have an official statement from CAF.
We don't have an official statement from CAF,
but the reports,
coming through,
indicating that Cameroon are in trouble.
Yeah, Cameroon are in trouble and are likely to lose their hosting rights.
Thank you very much, Benedict. We will be talking more about Cameroon and find out if they are not in trouble against Mali as they try to seek the final World Cup berth. Women's World Cup berth in that third place playoff taking place in Cape Coast. But we have to talk about the CAF Confederations Cup. We know there's a second leg between Raja and AS Vita. Raja lead this by 3-0. We have seen some surprises. There was a major upset in the Champions League when Esperance overturned the 3-1 deficit to beat Ackley to win that. So are there any surprises at all to look forward to? I had an earlier chat with African football expert Nuh Adams, and we first touched on the emphatic first leg Raja had in Casablanca.
Going into the game, Raja Casablanca looked favourite, even though the two sides met in the group stages and it ended 0-0 in Casablanca. But Raja Casablanca coming into the game with a 6 straight wins tells you they were absolutely on form, and getting 3 goals against Vita wasn't anything fluke. The scoreline could have even gone 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, thanks to the goalkeeper of AS Vita, Nelson Lucon, who made some expletive saves to deny Raja a huge match. Playing against Raja Casablanca, they can beat Raja, but to beat them 4-0, 5-0 to win the trophy is going to be a huge task.
Yeah, I know that's been the contention really for most who are following this result, especially with what we saw between Esperance and Ackley. It was a bit of a surprise really how Esperance got that result, and already we know that AS Vita are good at home. Yes, they get the wins. Is there any evidence at all, per what they've done this season, that suggests they can come close to doing this?
Yes, if you look at the game against Al Masry of Egypt, it was a close contest for AS Vita. Al Masry were going into the game with an unbeaten run in the CAF Confederations Cup, but rather AS Vita club did it very, very easy. They beat them 4-0. So it is possible they can beat Raja Casablanca 4-0 or even 5-0. But looking at the current form of Raja Casablanca, is always going to be difficult for AS Vita to beat them. The last 4 away matches for Raja Casablanca in the CAF Confederations Cup have all been wins. They won at Kara Brazzaville in Congo. They won 1-0 in Animba. Raja Casablanca are also having a very good away form. That is making the tie very, very difficult for AS Vita Club.
Well, I see. So AS Vita Club are obviously chasing an unlikely result. So let's talk about Juan Carlos Garrido, who will be the first manager to win the Confederations Cup with 2 clubs. Already won it with Ackley. If he wins this...
Yeah, Juan Carlos Garrido is one of the respected coaches we've seen in recent years in Africa. He has done remarkably well with Ali. He won the Egyptian Premier League, Egyptian FA Cup, won the CAF Confederations Cup. Have been in Raja Casablanca for a while now. I'm doing so greatly. You know, being an expert in winning the CAF Confederations Cup, being an expert on the African terrain, is able to win them the CAF Confederations Cup is going to be one of the remarkable achievements.
So is AS Vita Club up against Raja, and they know the DR Congo club, they are down by 3-0. Thank you very much, Nuhu, once again for your time. And so we keep our tabs on that. That's one game to come. Let's see who wins that. Raja Casablanca hoping that they can make this work. We have to now head for the Joy Sports BBC 2-way series. Maz Faruqi was standing by. We've got great derbies to look forward to. Yes, Chelsea, Fulham. That's good. And we've got Liverpool and Everton in the Merseyside derby. And then there's a North London derby between Arsenal and Spurs. Let's enjoy this. And when we come back, we get into our discussion for the afternoon. Look forward to Nigeria versus South Africa, the final of the African Women's Cup of Nations here in Accra. for your time, and it's such a big weekend to look forward to with great games on the horizon. Shall we start with Manchester United, whose manager was involved in a bit of drama after the Navy 1-0 win over Young Boys in midweek. Mourinho had to remind his lovers about his exploits in Europe. Does this simply point to the amount of pressure he's reeling under?
I think you're right, George. It probably does, and also when you look at some of the emotions and the drama that he was going through personally on the touchline in that match against Young Boys in midweek, some of the things he was doing were kind of quite surprising and astonishing, even by his standards. We mentioned, of course, the water bottles incident where he kicked one tray of water bottles and threw another on the ground after Marion Fellaini scored the late winner for Manchester United. But also there was that reaction he had when he turned to the crowd and sort of shook his head when Marcus Rashford missed a chance as well. It's not really the kind of reaction you expect from a manager. You expect him to really kind of keep that kind of stuff in the dressing room, don't you? So I think it does show that his mindset isn't right at the moment. He is under an awful lot of pressure, as you say. He seems to come out fighting every time he faces the media, doesn't he, both before and after matches, having to justify his record across Europe and all the trophies and all the accolades that he's won down the years, reminding them that he still is top dog. Is he, though, now? That's interesting to say, isn't it? Because you look at the performance against Crystal Palace last weekend in the English Premier League. That was a 0-0 draw at Old Trafford. Crystal Palace were unlucky not to have won that game. And you look at where United are in the table now. They're 14 points behind Manchester City, the league leaders, of course. They really don't look likely to catch them, even, as we say, at this early stage in the season. It's not what you'd expect to say about a club of United's size and pedigree, is it? Realistically, for his side now, in the league at least, that they're fighting for a Champions League spot, aren't they, for a top 4 spot? So for us to say at this early point in the season that United are out of the title race is some claim, but I think that is the case. And really, for Mourinho, he needs to look elsewhere to try and win trophies in the FA Cup or indeed in the Champions League.
Expectation at Old Trafford seems to be at an all-time low, with decreasing numbers under Jose, we are told. How relieving or otherwise will playing struggling Southampton away be for United?
Well, I think this match could go one of two ways, couldn't it? I think this is a match that United's board, United's fans, the press expect United to go down to the South Coast and be able to win. As you say, Southampton is struggling at the moment, aren't they? At the wrong end of the table. They're in the relegation zone on 8 points as it stands. Their manager, Mark Hughes, a former Manchester United player, of course, he's under huge pressure himself, isn't he? Lots of people saying that his job at Southampton is under threat as well. And you say that expectation at Old Trafford is at an all-time low. It is. Plenty of people actually missed Marion Fellaini's late goal in the Champions League game because they'd already left expecting a draw against Young Boys. So that really shows that the fans are kind of really starting to lose interest really in the kind of football that Manchester United are playing at the moment. So on the one hand, I think it's probably very good for Mourinho to be playing what looks on paper to be quite an easy match. If they fail to get the 3 points against Southampton, though, I think the pressure will really mount on him again.
Let's talk the headliner, the London derby between Arsenal and Spurs. Of course, Spurs should be on the up after thumping Chelsea at Wembley last week. How different, though, would Unai Emery's Arsenal challenge their old foe?
You're absolutely right, George. This is the headliner match, isn't it, of the weekend in the English Premier League. Even when you look at those matches on Sunday, this is the standout one. And these are two very, very different sides than they were a few seasons ago. Spurs, you mentioned how well they're playing at the moment. They had that wonderful performance against Chelsea at Wembley that you mentioned last weekend, a match they won 3-1. Ending Chelsea's unbeaten run in the Premier League so far. But Arsenal, they're a very, very different team as well, aren't they? Unai Emery came over at the beginning, took over at the beginning of the season. He started with a couple of tough matches against Chelsea and Manchester United that they lost. But since then, he's really managed to spend time with the players and really get them playing the kind of football that he wants. And if you look at the way they played against one of the other so-called big teams, Liverpool, at the beginning of November, that was a very different Arsenal side, wasn't it? So I think we can expect lots of exciting play, lots of goals in this one. Let's see how both sides fare after their European matches in midweek. Arsenal were able to rest a lot of their key players, weren't they? They'd already qualified ahead of their match in the Europa League on Thursday. Spurs, well, they're coming off the back of those two huge matches that we've already mentioned, aren't they? That match against Chelsea and that match against Inter in the Champions League. So will tiredness be a factor? We'll see in this one.
Merseyside derby next, and Liverpool, after the exertions of last week, will be a bit worried. Will that be an absolute advantage for Everton?
I think it has to be. You're right. Everton, of course, haven't played any midweek games in Europe, so their players will certainly be rested. They'll be able to put out exactly the same 11 if they wish as played last weekend. And Liverpool, as you say, they've had a tough couple of games. They did beat Watford last weekend, but really the scoreline really flattered them. Watford probably should have had a penalty in the first half, and Liverpool's goals all came late on in that game, so they really had to keep playing to nearly the end, didn't they? And they couldn't really take off any players to rest them early on in that match. And then you mentioned that PSG disappointing defeat for them and that trip to Paris that they had in midweek. Again, a lot of the big players exerting a lot of energy in that match, so I think they will be tired. And I don't know necessarily if some of the big players these days necessarily treat a match against Everton maybe in the same way that they might have done in previous years. Certainly some of the foreign players maybe don't necessarily think of the Merseyside derby as one of their biggest matches of the season. So it'll be interesting to see how tiredness plays in this one.
Let's end with Chelsea, and after their poor performance at Wembley against Spurs, what should we expect against Ranieri's Fulham?
You're absolutely right, George. This is something that we've mentioned. N'Golo Kante is definitely one of the players in Europe, really, in his position, isn't he? One of the stand-up players in Europe. And yet Maurizio Sarri seems keen to try and change his role and has said that he wants him to score more goals. I think that's very interesting because it kind of shows, even despite the success that he's had at Chelsea so far since he took over at Stamford Bridge, that he's really not quite sure how to get the best of some of his best players, and N'Golo Kante has certainly been one of those for Chelsea the last few seasons, hasn't he? So it's interesting time for Maurizio Sarri at Chelsea. This is probably the first big wobble you can say that he's had since he's took over. He's had a pretty nice run of it to start with, hasn't he, at Stamford Bridge. They had that defeat at Wembley against Spurs last week that you mentioned. I don't even necessarily think it was the defeat, but the manner of the defeat, really. I know they got a late goal, but really they were outplayed for long periods in that match. So I think it'll be very interesting to see if Maurizio Sarri is able to galvanise his team and really try and get them to come out again against Fulham. I think whatever happens, we're going to expect lots of goals in this one. And that's really because Fulham, although they play very, very exciting football going forward, they really haven't been able to defend very well so far, have they, this season? Claudio Ranieri obviously got a first win in charge of Fulham last weekend. But the goals, well, they really can't defend at the back, can they? So let's see if he's able to turn that around for Fulham and try and get them moving up.
Maz Faruqi there, Joy Sports, BBC Two-Way Series. So what should we expect elsewhere in Europe?
Jordan Sancho and Paco Alcácer will turn Borussia Dortmund's formidable firepower on Freiburg on Saturday as the league's pace setters bid to strengthen their grip on top spots in the table. Real Madrid play host to Valencia at the Bernabeu on Saturday evening, having already suffered 5 defeats from 13 matches in La Liga this season. Santiago Solari's side sit in 6th place, but Valencia, who only occupy 11th spot, will go ahead of their host on goal difference if they can register a rare win. This week's highlight fixture in Serie A sees two of Italy's most successful clubs come together as Roma take on Inter Milan. Roma come into the game with just 1 win in their last 5 Serie A matches, whilst Inter Milan, who were on a 7-game win streak before losing to Atlanta before the international break, will be looking to make it 9 wins in their last 10 games come Sunday. North London derby matches almost all produced exciting games in the Premier League, and with both teams just a few points apart near the top of the table, this fixture is sure to be no exception as Arsenal host Tottenham Hotspur. Liverpool are battling hard to stay just behind Premier League pace setters Manchester City and can't afford to slip up when facing neighbours Everton at Anfield in a huge Merseyside derby.
Moses Yaboa.
Mbumbelek, and it goes up. Nigeria certainly have one place there.
We need to qualify for the World Cup. Our captain talked to us and we know our responsibility now. We need to do well, play well and qualify. So it's only last thing we have to do now, and we're going to give all our best to do it.
The only country to have made the semi-finals, and it is Nigeria in the finals again. Absolutely incredible for this team. Every time they've had the chance to be in the semi-finals, they certainly have gone ahead to win the cup. Nigeria.
Yakari Nyakate, Johnny inside the box. Walk lines, Gatlana! South Africa are through to the final for the first time since 2012.
We came here to achieve our goal, and I think we have done exactly that. And I'm so incredibly proud of every single member of this team that's put in the hard work to get to where we are now. Of course, we want to look at the next target, which is, getting that gold medal around our necks. Tomorrow it's back to work again and focus on the next task.
And tears of joy for Captain Janine Patbey.
Well, sadly, this will be the last weekend we hear this because we're just at the end of the African Women's Cup of Nations. It's been really good. Nigeria would attempt defending the title against South Africa. Cameroon are up against Mali in the third place game in a couple of hours. Joining me in studio, Janine Anthony, BBC Africa. Can I put Lagos to that? Janine, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yes.
It's good to be here.
And it's good to have you as well. Benedict also, my colleague, joins me in studio as well. Benedict, everything looking good?
Yes, everything is okay.
Looking forward to your visits?
Yeah, of course, I am.
To South African camp? Anyway, Janine, your ladies have been entertaining us fairly, on Twitter, the dances and everything, looking really cool.
My ladies, you mean African ladies?
Oh, I mean Nigeria.
Oh, okay.
The Falcons, They're doing really good. I mean, there's so much exciting stuff around the team.
They're big on social media.
Yeah.
They know their worth, they know their brand, and they're fun and exciting, and they always show that there's after the football you can always relax, get into the groove, enjoy a different culture. But when the job needs to be done, they try and get it done.
Yeah, precisely that, and it's not been bad as well from South Africa. These are great teams. Benedict, these are just the teams you wanted in the final, right?
Of course. I mean, you see how South Africa over the years have prepared very well for this tournament, and Nigeria, as always, when they come, they will dazzle and play very well. Even at this tournament, I feel that Nigeria, they've not been at their best as we are used to looking at probably maybe since I started following women's football on this continent. And you see them this year and you see the South African team. Of course, I would have loved to see Cameroon in the finals because of what they've done in this tournament. But Nigeria, South Africa, solid game to
best you could ask for. Okay, so then let's talk about the game between Nigeria and South Africa, the first group game. What did anything go wrong with Nigeria, or you think South Africa were lucky on the day to beat Nigeria?
I think both teams sized each other up. I think they were both happy with a draw at that point in time. There weren't lots of clear-cut chances from the Nigerian point of view, but they were doing just about enough defensively. Again, and if you see that goal scored quite late, it was out of this world. No goalkeeper would save it. And you're looking at a goalkeeper who's in the running for the Golden Glove, who saved one penalty and was very close to the other one, when Cameroon lost. So that's a good goalkeeper, but an even better goal by Kagatlana. But again, speaking to to Onomebi, who of course is one of the long-standing members of this team, she said it's good that we had that loss because it's only just driven us. It's only just make us wake up and say, you know what, we are absolutely not going to let this slip. And yeah, I think that game, and for South Africa, they knew that in a group that had Equatorial Guinea that won this twice, in a group that, in fact, that group had all the champions of the Africa Women's Cup of Nations, and they knew that if they needed to get out of that group, they needed to get at least a result against Nigeria. So when 3 points came, they took it and said thank you very much.
So good point there. So South Africa was slightly motivated to win the game than Nigeria. Could it be the reverse now? Because South Africa have been talking a lot about we wanted to qualify. Now they have qualified. How does that play? Would they be as hungry to beat Nigeria and win this now that their major target has been reached?
George, if you listen to Van Wyk, the captain of the side, who tomorrow, God willing, will have her 160 cup, and some of the players that I have spoken to in the South African camp, of course, the first target has been achieved. That was qualifying for the World Cup. And now the other target is to win the tournament. But you look at Nigeria coming into this tournament, yes, of course, it was their target to qualify for the World Cup, and also the ultimate was to win the tournament. So now there's one team that quickly have to switch from qualifying for a World Cup and to win the tournament, and also another team that I know very well I'll qualify for the World Cup and eventually I want to defend the title. So of course Nigeria definitely will be motivated more than South Africa because I've reached my target. Now I have to add another one to it, and that's what they will try to do. But oftentimes, you know what happens when you look at football on this continent, and it happened to our Ghana junior teams in 1999 when Ghana, I remember very well in that competition, African Junior Championship 1999, the likes of Stephen Udro, Ishmael Adu and all the big players. Ghana played against DR Congo in the first game in our group, which we won by a goal to 0. In the final, we were beating 1-0. Yeah. It happened in Argentina as well. Same thing happened. So normally, we've been told or we've seen that when teams especially play in the first games and end up in the finals, it always goes the reverse to the other team. So I think that, South Africa not highly motivated as Nigeria because Francisco Odega, who after their game against Cameroon, which they really had a tough time, mentioned that yes, they are in the finals and they know very well that they are the champions and they have to do what champions must do.
So now this is where we are. Do you expect any major changes in that team, or they're just good enough to go and do the job, Nigeria?
I think for South Africa, the big shake for them is, not having Refilo Jane playing in that game because she has a commitment back into club football, which is another conversation we're going to have on another show.
I told Ridwan, we have Ridwan shortly. I told Ridwan we can't start this today. This is like a whole show on its own. Yeah, so they'll be missing her services as the vice captain and a very experienced player in the team. But they will pretty much line up same for same. For the Nigerian team as well, it's almost like what happened the 2 games before. They're going to start with the same team. I believe they will start with the same team against. It's hard to change like a winning formula in that regard. However, what kind of will separate these two sides is a bit of that mental capacity from Nigeria. They played 120 minutes. And, South Africa did the job in 90 minutes. So you're seeing a team may not necessarily be tired, but this team knows how to, circumvent and move around this thing. So I'm not exactly expecting wholesale changes to the 22 out on the pitch. However, it's what happens in the progression of the game. If, tired legs, injuries, no motivation, then, expect the coaches to make 1 or 2 changes. But I largely would expect the winning formula to take on the action on the day. You know what, guys? We'll take a short trip to Cape Coast. When we are back, I want to know who your player of the tournament is before we kick the final balls in the competition. So you have to have a think about it. Let me just quickly go to Cape Coast now. Redrana Behima-Asante will be running commentary on the 3rd place game between Cameroon and Mali. And I had to ask him a couple of questions. The first one was, who deserves the final World Cup slot?
I wish Mali can advance to the next stage because they played some good football here against Cameroon in the opening game. They took the lead and then allowed the indomitable Lionesses to come back into the game. And also against the Black Queens, they were as good as the scoreline suggested, 2-1. They played very gritty, they are strong, they know how to pass the ball around, and they look a bit tactically disciplined. My heart would like to go, for them, but hey, football goes beyond that. The indomitable Lionesses, we shouldn't forget that Cameroon lost to the defending champions, that's Nigeria. It went down to penalty shootout, and during the lottery of the shootout, it could go either way. Although, I've read articles about James's and, what is scientific, but hey, the best teams in the world, even Brazil lost out to Ghana at the Under-20, World Cup in 2009 in Egypt. So, I think it's a lottery. We don't have to, put a lot of premium on it. Roberto Baggio, of all people, missed a penalty at USA in shootout. It just happens that by virtue of fate, it meets us and we are out of the tournament. But this is a Cameroon team that finished second. It was a late Desire Oparanozia's goal 2 years ago on home soil that denied them the trophy for the first time, where they played some good football and they were denied once again in the semi-final. They should have gone one better, but they missed out on that seat. So I think it's going to be Cameroon. But Mali, after that, insipid performance against South Africa, and also going beyond their objective, going out of the group stage. And so I doubt they can punch above their weight again to go through from where they're coming from and with.
Right, you made a good point, and we'll probably have to visit this penalty issue again, because for the Cameroon team, forward Gael Ganamoui reports indicating that her home was vandalized after missing that penalty. So in a situation where Mali and Cameroon go to the penalty shootout, do you think the Cameroonian ladies will be in the right frame of mind to get this sorted out?
Yesterday at the pre-match conference, coach of the side, Joseph Brandon Doko, gave the impression that the lady had not been told yet. And we were trying to suggest to him that it's high time they informed the player because she could find out on social media.
Which should be the case by now, because...
And they were insistent that nothing of that sort had happened and there was no way she was going to find out. But a lot of change. I'm in the same hotel with the Cameroonian team, and I don't think by now she's still oblivious of that news. She might have been told or gotten wind of it, and most of the girls might have read on social media because they are always on their... they've been through thin and thick. I think that the coach is on top of the issues, and he would like to do something great. Also talking about the coach, and something interesting happened when we understand that from Accra, some Cameroonian journalists had their hotel burgled or their residence or place of lodging where stuff were stolen. They started robbery attacks, you understand, what we saw in a letter written or seeking.
Ridwan Beheva there, he'll be bringing us commentary there. So can we go to player of the tournament? Janine?
Thembi Kagatlana, 2017 CAF Player of the Year nominee. And she's doing quite well. She's scored in every match so far. She definitely is a standout player for me from South Africa. That's Christina. Sorry, we know her as Thembi Kagatlana. Christina Kagatlana as well.
Thembi Christina. You know why we are so fixated about when it comes to choosing players that play up front? Because they bang in the goals. So we see them as the best.
Who are you going to take?
Riser.
But sorry, that's what football was about. Like, who scores more? Sorry.
The Cameroonian number 8.
Okay, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Well, you've been
is really good.
Yeah, really good.
Super good.
Okay, so let's see how the votes go. Thank you very much, Benedict. Thank you very much, Janine and Anthony, for joining me on the show. We'll talk about the rest, okay? But of course, time for news at 2. And Enes Menu is here. Enes, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good, George. Yourself?
Yeah, what do we have in the news?
So coming up in the headline news, 2 president of the Center for Employment of Persons